Hey everyone, Captain Isaac here, locked and loaded. Welcome back to another video. Man, it's been a while since I've done a video with commentary. Wait, how long was it? 3 years ago, almost. Good lord. So, anyways, welcome to a new series I'm doing, the Casual Scrub's Guide to Unturned. What this series will be covering is some tips and tricks for single player, various map quest guides, and maybe even some mod showcases while I'm at it. And before you ask, yes, this is indeed a well thought out video idea. This game is definitely still alive and kicking, and definitely not infested by inactive bots and actively hemorrhaging real player accounts. But for you, the true reason I'm starting this series is because of a map I'm currently playing in Unturned. Has no quest guides available at this time for me to refer, and it's honestly a bit annoying since I can't get any help for the quests that are featured in the map. So it hit me. Why not just do that myself? This will definitely pay off and not be a total flop because no one's going to specifically look for that map to play in single player. Right? So join me, a 1,000+ hour unturned casual scrub, as we delve into the world of the blocky undead and attempt to thrive in whatever the game decides to throw at us. And yes, I am reading from a script if the webcam doesn't make it more bloody obvious. Now, a quick disclaimer before we begin. This guide is by no means a perfect instruction manual on how to play Unturned. Hell, it's called the Casual Scrub's Guide, for crying out loud. So there will be differences in gameplay compared to the PvP-focused peeps, or for the guys who like to play a challenge and play PvE exclusively on hard difficulty. This guide is meant for the people looking to explore, loot, and pop some zombie heads. So, most of what I will say will mostly cater to this specific group of people. Although, feel free to point out anything I got wrong or share some tips for yourself in the comment section. We all learn and help each other together, then that's what matters. Alright, disclaimer's over. Time to kick off the first episode. The basics. Before you hop onto any world, you ought to do the most important things when it comes to all things gaming. Optimizing your settings. Trust me, no one likes playing a laggy game, and for Unturned PvE, it's no different. Check your settings and lower them if your game is lagging. It's okay if your game looks like potato. You're here to enjoy the game, not the view. Or maybe you are. In that case, ramp it up all to ultra for all I care. I'm not your boss. No, seriously. Prioritize frames over looks. There are much better game choices if you want stunning views. Like, really? Unturned for scenery? One thing you need to look out for, however, in the settings is under graphics. There is a setting called Scope Quality. This setting, when enabled, applies a picture-in-picture scope to any optic coded to use this. The scopes are usually the ones which provide magnification. For instance, the Chevron scope, the 8X, and the military night vision scope, and more. I would suggest you leave this setting on at least low, as turn this option off would make scopes use an overlay image as the reticle. And like how the old Call of Duty shooters have them, like COD 4. Have their scopes with just a circle with lines, and the rest all blackened. With this setting off, it can cause a serious case of tunnel vision, since you can't really see anything else outside the scope. Also, certain maps straight up don't allow you to even use their optics if this setting is off. After settings, you should create a character that suits your taste. Head to Survivor, characters. This page allows you to select between different created characters. However, you may notice that some of your characters have a gold lock on them. That's because those are locked behind the gold upgrade DLC. If you don't have the DLC, not to worry. Most maps will never make use of multiple character saves. Most of them. So you're not missing out by that much by not having it. For your private name and public name, the public name is only the only one that really matters when it comes to single player. As some maps may use your public name in dialogues, and it may get a bit weird if all the NPCs call you by your username. If you have a weird username at first. I will elaborate further on character saves and private names in another video if I ever decide to do a local server guide. Next, choose a skill set that fits well with your character. Don't dwell on too much though, since these skill sets don't really give you a big advantage. Being a Spec Ops doesn't magically start you off with an automatic rifle. Afterwards, in Survivor's appearance, you can customize how your character looks, from their facial expression and skin tone, to their hairstyle and color. This is purely cosmetic and doesn't affect gameplay much. Again, some of these will be locked behind a paywall, but they won't really impact on gameplay. As for Survivor's inventory, you can equip any items you have and they will reflect in-game. As a starter, however, I don't think you'll have anything in there for now, so you can probably skip this. After you've created your guide, an optional step before all this is to try and play the tutorial, which teaches you the bare-bones stuff, like basic controls, general survival tips. Personally, I would recommend you try it at least once if you're not familiar with survival games like this. Though, if you have played similar games, you may skip this. Now, before you fire up a world, I suggest you set the difficulty to match your pacing, and take a look at the advanced world settings. How I would recommend the difficulties for newcomers is easy, if this is the first ever game you played, or you're just here for the guns and stuff. Normal for a more authentic experience, and hard, never. We're here to chill, so don't touch that difficulty if you're not going to, well, sweat in a zombie survival game. For maps and quests, I would normally suggest the normal difficulty, as some quests require you to kill certain zombie types, which is not achievable on easy without changing the advanced settings. Now, speaking of it, the advanced settings. You may tweak these to suit with how you want to play this game. No one can judge you for how you play. The sandbox-esque nature of PvE allows you to play the way you want, which suits this guide for the casual scrubs. Now, I would recommend you taking a look at these settings in particular, as these, in my opinion, make the game feel much less stressful and annoying if things don't go your way. First off, items has durability. If you don't like dealing with broken or rotten items, this setting should go. Of course, this diminishes the experience slightly, as repairing and renewing tools and resources are part of the game. But if you want to save your metal scrap for other priorities, then you may turn this off. You can also set individual item types to have durability applied to them right below this line. If you want tools and weapons to require maintenance, but don't want to waste time on finding food that hasn't gone bad, you can do that. Next up, zombies spawn chance. Now, I'm not just talking about this single line where it says spawn chance, I'm talking about all these lines, including crawler chance, burner chance, flanker chance, and the others. My suggestion is easy difficulty. Set the chances for these non-boss specials to something that isn't 0, so you can at least get to know how these zombies work, and learn the way to deal with them. If that's a bit too much to handle, at least do so for just sprinters and crawlers. After that, the 6 lines, which all relate to losing items on death. This is essentially Unturned's version of keep inventory in Minecraft. Don't like having to run all the way back to grab your stuff while risking it despawning? Turn all these off. You may argue that this is just cheating, since this topic is also commonly discussed in Minecraft. However, you're watching a casual guide, and retrieving dropped gear is annoying, so I recommend this turned off. Besides, no one's gonna take it anyway. What are the zombies gonna do with it? Now, you may have noticed a few lines regarding skill levels lost on death above these lines. I suggest you keep them on default, since losing a few levels in skills don't really have much of an impact compared to dropping your whole inventory. Plus, by late game, you'll be swimming in experience points. Okay, now this is just gob thinking. Good lord. Finally, gameplay ballistics and gameplay chart available. Ballistics basically mean bullet travel time and drop. So if you're a firearm geek like me, and want to LARP like an operator, popping heads with a rifle from hundreds of meters away, I suggest turning this on. You can alternatively turn it off if you just want to click on heads. TLDR, turn it on for the guns, turn it off for simple gunplay. Chart available enables the map without needing to find a chart item from in-game. This is again optional if you want a more authentic experience, but I should kindly remind you that with this setting off, you need at least some map knowledge if you want to locate certain locations, like a campsite for said chart. Even if you do manage to stumble your way onto a campsite, you are at the mercy of our favorite game mechanic in almost every game: RNG. You best hope that there's just a chart lying around, or one of the zombies you kill drop one. Otherwise, you'll be running down the main roads blind at this point. My suggestion is to turn this on, at least when you're still defaulting to easy and are still learning the ropes to this game. The line below this, satellite available, is essentially the same thing, but the map is more detailed. I suggest leaving this off. Make finding a GPS one of your objectives after early game. Congratulations! You made it past the boring part. Now is where the fun really begins. Load into a map that suits your fancy. Though, for the rookies still starting out, I would recommend either PEI or Washington, so you can learn the core mechanics of the game and not be overwhelmed by quests, custom map mechanics, and other distractions. Now, once you're in, you'll be thrown into a random spawn point within the map. Your heads-up display will show you some vital information. Going down the bars on the bottom left, the first one is your health. If this hits 0, you just die. Second and third are your hunger and thirst bars. They will deplete over time, and you need to eat and drink to replenish them. If these hit 0, you will starve or be dehydrated, and slowly lose health over time. The fourth bar is your immunity. This goes down if you get hit by zombies, or if you consume bad food. This has a default decay threshold of 50, meaning if you keep this above this number, it will not go down over time. If this bar hits 0, you will lose health over time. Your fifth and last bars are your stamina and oxygen. Stamina is consumed when sprinting and jumping. Oxygen is consumed when underwater or holding your breath when scoped in. These bars aren't too vital, but keep in mind that having 0 oxygen underwater drowns you, causing you to lose health. In your inventory, you should be wearing the preset clothing determined by your skill set. This will give you a slight head start on inventory space. You can left-click on items in your inventory to move them around. Pressing R will rotate them 90 degrees, just in case if you need to play inventory Tetris. Right-clicking an item shows you the item's details. For example, how much a food item fills your hunger, how much damage can a gun do, and many other details. It also gives you a few interactions with the items, like equipping it, dropping it, salvaging it, etc. After taking a good look around, start by finding a small settlement. One tip I can give for finding one is to look for roads, be it asphalt or dirt road. By walking down said road, you're bound to run into a settlement of sorts which can get you basic supplies. This is essentially useful for the guys playing with chart available turned off, as you don't want to be walking aimlessly. Now, I would suggest people starting out to look for campsites, to secure themselves a chart as soon as possible, maybe even trying your luck at finding some logging gear or some means of defense. If a campsite is not the first point of interest you encounter, not to worry, any settlement can still help you get the jump started. A farm, an airport, even a small town. However, I would highly suggest you steer clear of large cities and military bases at the start because of, yeah. And I don't think your dinky flashlight or baseball bat is going to cut it with no skills leveled up. Now, after venturing into your settlement of choice, it's time to loot. More specifically, secure supplies that will help you prolong your existence. First off, a makeshift weapon. Your first weapon doesn't have to be anything too fancy. Even a flashlight can go a long way in helping you secure vital supplies. If you can find things that are practically asking to be used to bash some heads in, a rig, a baseball bat, or a knife, that's good. But whatever you do, do not use your fists as your primary weapon. Melee weapons can at least stun zombies when you land a hit, which makes taking out single-out zombies much easier and more efficient. Your fists, however, do not stun them, so it'll just devolve into a UFC fight night, which no side will win spectacularly. Sure, you may have killed a zombie, but now you are bingo on health and actively bleeding to death. Yay. One side note, if your first weapon just so happens to be a flashlight, keep in mind that zombies can detect light and will start chasing you, kinda like how the witches in Left 4 Dead works. Guns, if you can manage to find one, are a massive bonus. This unlocks an ability for you to do ranged attacks, which can be a huge advantage fighting against zombies looking directly at where you want to go, or these spicy boys. You do not want to be within melee distance when fighting these guys. Now, using one straight away after finding one, however, I wouldn't really advise that because you kind of run into two main problems when you fire that first shot. One, guns are loud, so if you accidentally pull the trigger on your highly dangerous popcorn machine, you have alerted the horde. Now, you might be thinking, but I have a gun, I could fend them off no problem. That's where you run into problem 2. You have enough bullets? Depending on your settings and where you decide to loot, you have a high chance of finding a firearm that has either a problem with dealing with a horde of zombies that should they rush you, aka a bolt-action rifle, or B, there's exactly 2 bullets left in the magazine and you don't have a spare. I hope you're confident in your ability to manage your stamina as well as smacking zombies in the face because, ooh, that's going to be rough. Alright, that was a big tangent on makeshift weapons. Now, food and drinks. Your character needs to eat and drink to survive. Shocker. I know. Some good places to loot for these things are civilian houses, restaurants, grocery stores, and any location where you would realistically find food and drinks. This, however, poses a different problem. Remember that setting has durability that I told you to pay attention to? If you have this turned on, food items may have poor qualities when found, and when consuming these, they don't fill your hunger and thirst bars as much. They also damage your immunity bar, which will cause further problems if you don't have medicine. Now, This transitions nicely to the next item type you should be looking for. Medicine. You are eventually going to take damage, and whether it's falling off a 3-story building, breaking both your legs, taking a load of damage from zombies because, let's face it, they are probably your main threat, or eating too much rotten canned beans. Your health and immunity bars are rarely going to be full if you're not careful enough. This is where medicine comes in. You can find these in, well, obviously, hospitals, pharmacies, and practitioners. There are 3 main types of medicine: dressing, splints, and immunity medications. Dressings are probably the medical type you'll be spamming the most. They recover health. They stop bleeding. They are arguably the most accessible kind of medicine you can have. And they save lives. So make sure you always have a few handy on you. Splints are less useful as they only recover a small amount of health and heal broken bones. So unless you for some reason don't have any cloth in your inventory or have been jumping off tall buildings like some wannabe parkour artists, you won't be needing this often. Just keep 2 metal straps on you and you can craft one whenever you need them. Immunity medication is, however, more important, as they are mostly your only way of topping up your immunity bar. It may be convenient to have at least 2 bottles of vitamins or antibiotics on you just in case your immunity drops below the decay threshold. It's always a good idea to have at least a few of these medical items on you when going on loot runs, as you may run into situations where you'd have hoped that you brought along that bottle of cough syrup. Bleeding is also another condition that often occurs when looting. This is the main reason for most combat deaths. If you don't have even a rag on you, the Unturned main theme will probably something you'll be hearing often. Lastly, clothing. You may already have some clothing provided by your skill set, however, you'd be surprised at how fast your inventory fills up when there are no other players that you have to share your loot with. So, you'll still need to find some better clothing, and maybe a backpack. Preferably at a decent durability and has loads of inventory space. Some good clothing items to start off with are probably parkas of any color, police bottoms, and any vest you come by, be it a sweater vest, a honcho, or an armored vest. A backpack is also an item you should keep an eye out for, as it greatly increases the amount of items you can carry in inventory. Head to school buildings or clothing stores. You can also likely find a day pack or a travel pack within, which can be a good starter backpack. Now, with all that scavenging, your inventory should start to look filled to the brim. Though, I suggest not completely filling up those remaining slots, as they will help in convenience when moving on to later steps. If you, however, have stuffed everything into your pack, you can drop or scrap anything that you don't urgently need, such as unused clothing items or excess tools and weapons. This will provide you with metal scrap and cloth, which are important base materials for a lot of crafts. One trick noted in loading screen tips is that you can control-click items for faster operations. Control left-clicking items will drop them on the ground. Control right-clicking them will equip them in your hand or active weapon slots. After securing yourself enough supplies to last the night, next, you'll want to make yourself much tougher to kill. This is where crafting and skill comes in. As mentioned before, you can scrap excess items in your inventory to get materials like cloth and metal scraps. These items are essential as they are key components to basic necessities such as bandages and makeshift tools. All these fall under the crafting system, which, not gonna lie, is an extensive and somewhat cumbersome system to use. Don't worry about too much. I will guide you through how to navigate this complex system. Let's just hope that you weren't too battered by the last fight you engaged in to utilize this. Now, upon entering the crafting menu, you will be greeted by 10 category buttons, a search bar, and the available recipes below that. The 10 category buttons each symbolize tools, apparel, supplies, gear, ammunition, barricades, structures, utilities, furniture, and repair. Tools are general crafts and scraps. You will find most of the recipes that do not fit in other categories here, as was most of the salvaging recipes. These usually include recipes for makeshift weapons and tools. So you may want to look into this once you set up shop and are looking for a better weapon. Apparel contains all recipes related to clothing. You will mostly find clothing salvaging recipes here, and some crafting recipes as well, such as the leather clothes and the makeshift vests. You will be frequenting this tab if you are constantly short on bandages. Supplies are mostly food, drinks, and medical items. You'll find most of your cooking recipes and medicinal crafts in this tab, which includes your bandages, so this tab will be used just as much alongside the apparel category. Gear contains recipes for complex crafting materials, such as crafting metal scraps into nails, metal sheets, or cans, and sawing wood logs into planks and sticks. This will probably be your most frequent tab, as it mostly contains recipes that work with base materials, so you will constantly need to craft complex materials to make other items. Ammunition is mainly used to repack and refill magazines for ranged weapons, so if you are at a stage where firearms are essentially your main weapon and ammo is no longer a concern, this tab will serve you well. Barricades are buildings that can be placed in the world. These will contain recipes for things you can place to block off doorways and windows. There are also traps you can craft to injure or kill anything that dares walk into it. Doors and hatches are also located here, as they technically aren't things that can block off an entry. Structures are the core base building items. They include your floors, pillars, walls, roofs, and any item of the same nature. If you are looking to establish a base, this is your tab. These recipes usually involve the use of wood logs or metal sheets. Utilities are more complex buildings. They typically involve more advanced materials and are commonly accessed during middle game. These include recipes for generators, claim flags, light sources, and other advanced machinery and gadgets. For early game people, you will use this tab for the campfire and torches. Furniture is just as it sounds. It is basically buildings you can make to help make your base look more habitable. You will use this tab to make storage buildings for most of the game, as it contains recipes for crates, lockers, and others. Finally, repair contains all things maintenance. If you have an item that has durability that needs refreshing, this will be the tab for you. However, if you play with durability off, the only item that you require maintenance are muzzle attachments for firearms, like your suppressors and muzzle brakes. Now, one thing on note is that crafting items make noise, and zombies are attracted to noise. So, try to avoid crafting anything when you suspect a zombie is just around the corner. Whew, now, that was a mouthful. Next up, we'll be moving on to skills. Skills are essentially abilities that can help you survive and thrive in the world ever so slightly better. There are 3 main categories of skills, but I won't go into too much detail about where a specific skill is under, since there are only 3 main categories. For starters, you should invest your experience points on skills that prolong your longevity, whether in or out of combat. In my opinion, the 5 skills that you should prioritize are crafting, survival, healing, immunity, and outdoors. Crafting is self-explanatory. The higher level that skill is, the more complex items you can craft. I would suggest you at least get level 1 to gain access to makeshift items, such as the makeshift muffler and various wooden bows. Survival slows down the decay of your hunger and thirst bars. This is immensely helpful in general, as slower hunger and thirst draining mean you do not need to worry about too much about not having enough grub on you to sustain yourself. This is especially true with durability turned on, where food that's safe enough to eat may not be that common to come by. Healing improves how much a healing item can heal. This skill is helpful for when you take an absolute beating and have not many meds on hand. It is also handy to have in general, as healing more means you can survive fights more. Immunity is fairly important in the early game. Immunity medication may not be something that you have all the time without looting a medical location, and taking hits from zombies as well as eating bad food drastically drops your immunity. So making sure the immunity bar stays topped off by leveling this up is good for early game. Finally, outdoors. This skill is not as important as the other four. Hell, I would probably suggest engineer level 1 to unlock access to makeshift items repairing, but considering that the sun is slowly setting and your inventory is looking packed as all hell, getting this skill can speed up the process of base building, especially if the only tool you have for wood cutting is a flimsy saw. Sometimes, things just really don't go your way. You may get caught by surprise, make a mistake, and the situation just turns south. Fast. Threats are everywhere, and there's the lack of good food and water, lack of medication, zombies, the list goes on. But before death comes knocking to your door, we should keep certain things in mind. 1. Stealthing is always better than going loud and blind. Zombies are noisy fellas. You can practically hear one even with a shoddy pair of earbuds. If audio peripherals are not your jam, practicing a more patient playstyle can benefit you, as you don't make much noise when crouched. You don't need to rush inside a building fearing that someone will snatch your loot. The world is yours and yours alone. Take your time. That is, unless you're starving your face off. 2. Safety first. Supplement second. Anything else out of the way. You don't need absolutely everything. Sometimes it may be worth giving up scavenging a location if the location is lurking with too many hostiles for your own good. Or leaving an item that is not all that important when your vital signs are not doing too hot. Instead, keep these in mind. Is the location you want to loot too dangerous for your current situation? Hang back and strategize. Does the location have what you desperately need? Attempt to stealth the place. If not, turn back. Are there any weapons you can use without causing the entire horde to cave in on your position? Use that. If you unfortunately have ceased to exist and are listening to the Unturned main theme, do not fret. Start over and try again. Depending on your settings, you will have either only lost some of your skill levels or your entire inventory. If it's the latter, I would suggest you hit the nearest settlement and start over from there. You may attempt to reclaim your belongings once you secure enough supplies to last yourself a while. They won't despawn immediately. In the case of skills, you may have lost 1 or 2 levels in every skill except for the one your skill set covers. Your skill set makes it so that you can learn those specific skills with lesser cost, and it prevents those skills from being lowered on death. Now, you don't exactly have a black hole for inventory. You will eventually run out of space to store loot, and it must eventually go somewhere. At this point, the best course of action is to set up a base and dump all the not so important stuff into. Ideally, you want to find a good location to build a place you'll call home, preferably with easy access to vital supplies in case you run low. These vital supplies are of course food and water that will keep you alive when you're passing the night, materials for crafting and maintaining tools, as well as weapons and ammunition, though I would consider those a bonus. One common mistake I see newcomers make is setting up shop inside a point of interest, specifically where zombies can easily get to you. Zombies are attracted to noise, and moving around your base can make noise. This will cause them to aggro on you, and they will not hesitate to tear through your base to get to you. My advice is to set up next to, not inside, next to said point of interest. That way, the location is walking distance away. And you won't risk zombies overrunning your base when you sprint around it. Some examples of good base locations are north of Charlottetown in PEI, the top of the hill between Seattle and the military base in Washington, east of Moscow in Russia. With your location decided, time to bring down the timber. Start hacking away at any tree with a sharp melee weapon. If you have an axe or chainsaw, that's good, but if you didn't manage to procure these luxuries, even the saw you craft works. It'll just take a while. Note that you will find 3 types of wood in vanilla Unturned: birch, maple, and pine, with birch being the weakest in strength and storage, and pine being the strongest. After grabbing some logs and sticks, turn 3 logs into a floor each. At least 1 floor is recommended. You can make more if you have the wood to spare. Place it somewhere that is safe and suits your fancy. If it says blocked, you are probably placing it too close to yourself. One compromise you can make if you are short on wood is using birch for building, since raiding isn't a concern. After the floors, craft some crates. Each crate will cost 7 planks and 3 sticks, and you should craft enough to store all, if not most, of your non-vital loot. You can saw down logs into planks and planks into sticks, but note that you cannot recraft planks into logs, only sticks into planks. At least, not without mods. So make sure to plan accordingly and click carefully. I suggest using stronger wood types like pine for storage furniture, as they provide more space. Next up, a campfire. This will cost you 5 logs and will provide light, warmth, and a way to prepare cooked food. Now, if you've been scavenging cloth, making a bedroll should be your next and last priority, as this allows you to set a respawn point should you die. However, if your cloth has turned into rags and bandages, not to worry. Make this your next main objective in your next loot run. Now that everything is set up, time to prepare for your next loot run. First off, you can't loot with a full inventory. Sort any items that you don't necessarily need for looting inside the crates you crafted. These things include ranged weapons with little to no ammo, excess materials such as glue and tape, large tools like pickaxes and chainsaws, unless if you're using those as weapons, and anything that doesn't immediately help you in combating zombies and keeping your vitals topped up. Though, it may be a good idea to keep at least one ranged weapon if you need to deal with burner zombies. Even a crafted wooden bow will survive. Now, if you made it this far, congratulations! You should generally have an idea on what you need to do to survive your first nights in this game. And after making it here, you should look into finding more advanced supplies when gathering necessities to make yourself even harder to kill, or make your base more habitable and comfortable. Such items include a blowtorch, gas cans, generators, and others. Note that you should always keep track of how much you can carry. If it comes time that you need to play inventory Tetris, sometimes dropping non-vital loot is much better and time-saving. Sure, you could have brought home that pump-action shotgun, but Having a gas can and a generator take up the space occupied by that may be a better option. After every return to base, you should also look into more complex crafting recipes. Sure, they may be locked behind 100 plus experience points, but if you're doing things right and are surviving properly, you should have a decent amount of experience and maybe even have the required materials to make those crafts. Experiment by crafting various items like metal sheets, bars, cans, rope, etc. Though, something to note is that some of these items, while they can be decrafted, they won't refund the craft cost completely, so again, meticulous planning may be needed. Another way is to, of course, consult wiki pages through the internet, or forums, such as the r/Unturned subreddit. No need to be shy, ask your questions there. Someone is bound to come to your aid. Hell, you can ask me here if you want, I'll gladly answer them. That's it. You've made it to the end of this guide, and hopefully with enough knowledge on how you can survive these first days and nights. Now, for our next video on this series, I am planning to talk about more advanced stuff, and map-specific guides as well. Let me know in the comments what you would like to see first. If I don't really get much feedback, the advanced stuff video will probably come first. Leave a like if you find this video helpful. Subscribe if you want to see more shenanigans from my channel. Comment if you have a question, a request, or wish to correct me on something I got wrong. Now, I hope this video has provided enough help, or maybe even got you interested in trying this game. I'll be watching over you, this survivor, to see if you can thrive in these wastelands. See if you can bring the pain to the zombies. To see if you can remain unturned. This is Captain Isaac, over and out.